Good evening, everybody. It looks like it's the bewitching hour. Hello, everyone. I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, October 11th, 2016. We're at the Village of Westchester Board meeting. It is 7 o'clock. Following our meeting, we'll have a committee of the whole. I'd ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Ms. Sherby, before you call the roll, I'm not sure if all the board members know it, but you have been, from your email to me on September 11th, made a deaconess of your church. Is that not correct? Oh. So with that in mind, I will ask you to give us a little invocation. I think that's allowed, Mike.
Yes,
this evening before we start our meeting, and then you can call the roll.
And thank you for acknowledging that. Father God, we just thank you, Lord, for this day. Father, as we come together, we ask that you clear our hearts and minds, that we may come together here, Lord, on one accord, and do what is best for our community. Father, we thank you for each and every one that is present here today, and ask that you look upon them, but their veins, Lord. I know that it's been a minute since I have been here, and we've had several of our team have lost loved ones, and we ask that you do, Lord, not just be a comforter to them during this time of bereavement. And we be so careful, Lord, to give you all the glory, honor, and praise. In your Son, Jesus' name I pray.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Sherby. And you didn't know that was coming either, so there you go. I did my job. And would you please the roll?
Trustee Calcagno.
Present.
Trustee Celestino.
Present.
Trustee Perry.
Present.
Trustee Rita.
Present.
Trustee Stecker.
Present.
Trustee Yorkovich.
Present.
President Julia.
Present. We do have a quorum, and thank you, everybody, for attending this evening. Our next item is presentations. Do we have anything this evening?
We do not.
So, next is public comments and questions. I don't see anyone in the audience, but I would ask if there are any visitors that are hiding that they come out of the shadows and present. They have 3 minutes. So going once, twice, 3 times. We'll close public comments. Item number 6 under the consent agenda. We have item A, approval of the record of bills ending 10/6/16 in the amount of $925,568.85. Approval of minutes of September 27th, 16 of the board, September 27th, 16 committee of the whole. And we have the handout September 27, 2016 of executive session. Item number C, approval of department monthly reports, community development, police, fire, public works. Item D, a resolution authorizing the execution of a contract between the Village of Westchester and Nordcom Public Safety Communications, Incorporated, for the provision of emergency dispatch services from the period of November 1, 2016 through October 31st, 2017, in the amount of $519,079. Item E, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Westchester and the Westchester Park District regarding the installation and maintenance of 2 security cameras in Gladstone Park. Does anyone need anything pulled? If not, is there a motion and a second for approval?
I'd like to have
Yes,
the
sir.
record pulled, please.
Item A, okay.
Yes, please.
Anything else? B, C, D, or E? Anyone? Is there a motion and a second for approval of B, C, D, and E?
So moved. Second.
Tom? Angelo get it, or?
Sure.
Angelo? Tom and Angelo, motion on the floor. Roll call, please.
Aye.
Trustee Celestino.
Aye.
Trustee Carey.
Aye.
Trustee Rita.
Aye.
Trustee Stecker.
Aye.
Trustee York.
Aye.
President Polito.
Aye, motion carries. May I have a motion and a second for the approval of the record of bills ending 10/6/16 in the amount not to exceed $925,568.85 to
Motion.
discuss that.
Second.
Celeste and Tom. Frank?
I just wanted to go over the BNF construction bills. I understand the $45,000 that's presented in the record is a little excessive and quite above average for the monthly. But the monthly for these bills is anywhere from $10,000 to $14,000. And we've discussed in the past bringing that back in-house. And, you know, BNF only works part-time, and it's abundantly clear we need more than part-time work in town. Their turnover on their personnel is, I mean, to say that it's monthly is being kind. We don't have the same code enforcement officers month to month, basically. And I only know this because they come in the restaurant for sandwiches, and I don't recognize them unless they have their shirts on. That's not good for the town. When Tony Saviano was around, people knew Tony. They could talk to Tony. You know, Tony would discuss with them and calm them down a little bit. Oh, what else do I have? I just want an explanation of how keeping BNF is beneficial for us when we could be actually profiting from the code enforcement. I know I hit you with quite a bit right there, but still.
Sorry. Melissa, do you want to start the commentary?
There has been turnover on the code enforcement side. We do, and that is the function that is only here part-time.
I'm talking more on the money end of it. I mean, those are just issues just to press it to bring it back in-house. I mean, the main issue here is that we're spending a lot of money on part-time work when we could be getting minimally one, probably two, in-house with benefits.
The fees that are charged for permit fees for the building inspector, they cover the cost of that person. And he is here full-time.
Okay,
So they have a car here now. They've had one
I've seen it.
over the
But
summer.
still, we could be profiting from this. We're paying one person 100 how much? How much have we spent on these bills at the past year? In total, 2 year to date.
I don't have that number.
Okay, well, this month alone was $45,000.
To be enough.
To BNF, it's right there, $45,000.
That was for July and August.
I know it was. Okay, let's go 20,000 each. I'll give you $5,000. If we're averaging $20,000 a month, which we're not, but that's $200,000 plus a year. How many could we get for that amount of money?
I don't know the numbers with benefits, what it would cost to have someone on staff.
Okay, it'll be less than $100,000. If we get somebody of quality on staff, it'll be less than $100,000 with benefits.
If I recall from when Tony was on staff, it was over $100,000 for him to be on staff.
Then let it be over $100,000. Even at 110, we're still bringing money back into the town. At 120, we're still bringing money back into the town.
Right, but one person can't do the volume of work. Even when Tony was here, we were outsourcing plan reviews, and had a part-time plan reviewer, things like that. So the volume of work far exceeds what one person can do. So we'd have to do an analysis of having an in-house inspector plus outsourcing based on the number of plan reviews and things that have been done this year.
I'm sure if this got organized the right way, there will be plenty of money in there to hire two, just like we had two before with a department head. So basically, we're hiring one. And if Melissa is our Dennis and the one is our Tony, then we're back to having two for the same kind of salary money.
We still had to outsource plan reviews. and
Okay,
things
but
like
not to
that
this
with them.
tune of money. This is absurd what we are spending on BNF. Absurd.
One other thing to keep in mind is that right now is a heavier season for construction, so I have someone in office all the
give
time.
me the average per month. You cannot argue this. It's way above $120,000 that we're spending with this company. In 2 months' time, we spent $20,000 a month.
I don't have the numbers. I wasn't
You don't need
prepared
them.
with
I
the
mean, common
numbers.
sense is going to tell you that it's going to be between $10,000 and $20,000 a month. When you got $22,000 and change a month there for July and August.
But their billables in January and February are lower.
Okay, so are you saying
because I
we're going
don't
to have
have
months
someone-
where our billables are only going to be $20,000? Because that's what you're gonna need to offset these numbers.
I don't know what the numbers are. I
Okay,
can provide
we've
them
been
to the
asking for
board.
these numbers also for way more than a year. It's come up from Angelo, it's come up from Tommy.
Could we get an analysis maybe for?
I mean,
next-
and we've
I mean,
asked for that, and then it never comes though, Nick, it never comes.
Does, just real quick,
No.
and I know a lot of this is recovered from the permit requesters, but what I'm getting at is, I kind of get where Frank's going with this. Having our own in-house person is a lot more personable and maybe a little bit more flexible than having the BNF. It's come to my attention quite a few times that BNF didn't even understand some of our codes.
I had not.
I mean, they kind of messed up a couple of times when looking at something, doing code enforcement, and either misread it or misinterpreted it, so just, I get where he's going with it. I mean, if you can.
There's too
if
many
you're gonna
benefits
recover
to
the
bring it
money-
back in-house.
Yeah, if you're gonna recover the money anyways, it's covering the cost of the inspector. So, yeah, maybe let's see what we spend a year on BNF, and, is it worth bringing it back in-house?
I see two inspectors here generally when I'm here. There's someone that's doing like house inspections, if I have it correctly, and then there's somebody out there doing the right-around code issues that they would see or not see, or what we report and stuff like that. But again, there probably should be an analysis. I think we have enough time, being at least a year of having the service, to see where the costs are and offsets the revenues and the benefits in total. We need to do that. It's been requested by the board. Let's see if we can have some of that analysis for our next meeting to determine where we're going as we end up. We're going to be in January in a couple of months. It's the lighter time. It always has been. And we can make a determination of where we want to go in the future for that. I don't think the request from the board is that outlandish that we can't do that and have a spreadsheet of outsourcing versus insourcing.
Yeah, no, we have plenty of time before budgets for that, sure.
So why don't we get that going? And then also I'd like to see the recouping costs. I'm not sure, to be quite honest, when Tony was here, what we were recouping. Were we recouping anything or a portion of what's coming back that is now being charged to a resident for these things? So I'd like to see that analysis as well.
Yeah, good.
Okay. With that being said, there is a motion and a second on the floor. There has been discussion on this item. If there's no other further discussion, I'd ask for the vote to be called regarding the payment of what appears to be 2 months of bills for BNF.
Are we separating BNF out, or? are we
No,
just
no, no,
having a
it's good.
motion to approve the entire 9?
No, I'm sorry, to do all of them, yeah, because we pulled them all, I'm sorry.
You're not asking for that to be pulled, are you, trustee Porter?
No.
All right. So there's a motion and a second on the floor to approve all the bills, including the BNF of the 2-month, by Celeste and Tom. So, sure be pleased the roll.
Trustee Celestine?
Aye.
Trustee Floyd?
Aye.
Trustee Rita?
Aye.
Trustee Stecker?
Aye.
Trustee Yorkovich?
Aye.
Trustee Calhoun?
Aye.
President Julio?
Aye, motion carries. We'll jump into item 7 on the active agenda, approval of the collective bargaining agreement between the Village of Westchester and Teamster Local 705. There was a handout of the contract. When I walked in, I think it was this morning, I can't remember if it was this morning or yesterday, I was greeted by their union representative from 705, Mike, who told me that this overwhelmingly passed. I think there were 2 nays and about 14 yeses on this. So he was pretty pleased with that as the membership pretty much in total. So anyway, I don't know if Janitor Mike could outline some of the highlights of the contract that were in discussionary items over the last several months. And then we
Yes,
can,
there was a wage increase of 2.25% in each of the 3 years, May 1st, 2016, 2017, 2018, there's language that if the local government distributive fund is reduced by 15% or more, then the employees will receive half of that wage increase, which would be 1.125%. And if it's reduced by 30% or more, then there's no wage increase for that year. These employees are covered by the Teamsters health insurance plan, so there were increases in those rates negotiated. I believe that for at least a portion of 2016, they're lower than what the prior contract required them to be paid out at. I think the other significant item was there, if you'll recall, in a prior executive session, we discussed one of the topics, which was the subcontracting provision. That dollar amount moved from a contract with an outside entity of $5,000 or more to $10,000 or more at your direction. So I believe those are the main highlights.
Yes.
Anything to add, Janet?
No, I just, no. I think it was a favorable outcome.
Good. Any board commentary? If not,
I'm sorry? 3 years, 16,
contract,
17,
yes.
18, yes.
all right, so with that being said, may I have a motion and a second for the approval?
So moved.
Second.
Tom
Carl.
and Carl. Okay, there's a motion on the floor from Tom and Carl to approve the 705 contract with the village. If there's no further questions, Sherby, please call the roll.
Trustee Perry?
Aye.
Trustee Rita?
Aye.
Trustee Stettner?
Aye.
Trustee York?
Aye.
Trustee Calpagno?
Aye.
Trustee Celestino?
Aye.
President Boyer?
Aye, motion carries. Thank you all. Our next item 8 is the manager's report. Janet, anything?
Yes, very brief this evening. I just wanted to officially extend the village's sympathies to Chief Steve Stelter on the recent loss of his mother, and know that all of our thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. That's all I have for this evening.
And that sentiment goes for all of us here
Absolutely.
at the dais, Chief. Michael, any report?
There are a couple of items regarding litigation that we will discuss in executive session. And Chief, I would also like to extend my sympathies. I happen to have been out of town when the services were held. I'm very sorry. Thank you.
Item number 10, board members. Frankie, anything from EDC?
We just keep on trying to promote the Pride in 7 campaign. Same discussion.
And we had one at Gober's
Gober. We
for
had one
the
in Gober for the Fountain
fountain.
District. What's the next district again? Is it High Ridge? No, we did High Ridge.
Isn't the next one Prairie?
Prairie District, right.
Prairie
we're doing the
District.
Prairie District.
So,
And that's going to be at Mariano's. 27th?
Nikki, anything?
My usual spiel. As you can see in the minutes, every meeting that we've had for the last, I don't even know how long, I've been asking to get this fourth guy in the fire station to fully staff the fire department. I'm going to ask again that we fully staff the fire department. On 8/31, I requested the chief to give me an analysis of the overtime. On 9/6, I asked him for an update. I still hadn't received it. On 9/8, I was given an analysis that estimated from that date on through October 31st, there would only be $5,000 in overtime, $53.88 in overtime. In the month of, now I asked again for an analysis, or for an update, and the month of September alone was $25,000 in overtime, which was $20,000 over what he estimated for 2 months. So right now, we're at, as of 9/30, we've shelled out $130,000 in overtime in 5 months of this budget. We only budgeted $130,000 for the entire year. Where we should have been, if we were on track, we would be at about $54,000. And I've been told, oh, it's offset by the, because we haven't hired those guys of full-time salaries. Not the case. We're currently at, for full-time members, the staffing salaries, $965,872, and we're at $934. So it's the difference between, we're 41% of the budget, and we're currently at 40% of the budget. So it's a difference of 1%, whereas with the overtime, we're through the roof. And I understand now, Captain, I know you got the 3 guys in now. I don't know if they're on shift yet, or have they started on shift yet, or do you know when?
They're on shift, but they're not counted as manpower.
Okay, do you know when they're gonna begin being counted as manpower? Okay, so, and I don't, do you guys have any, sorry, you're walking into this, you didn't know that I was gonna, do you have any guys off on injury right now, or anything like that, or any long-term stuff?
We have one on disability right now.
Okay.
And he's due back in November.
Okay, so my point is, like I say every time, the bleeding is going to continue. And I don't understand why there's been so much resistance to try to get this 4th guy through. It only makes sense that we staff all the shifts the same. We're going to referendum to ask for 3 more people to potentially put up a second ambulance when a second call comes up. And if we're going to run short on one shift all the time, I mean, that's not what we're telling people we're going to do. This money is just going out the door, and it's going to be Groundhog Day come budget time again, when we look at all this money that we had. I mean, Celeste, said at the last budget, look at all this money that's left over. We had all these wish lists, all these other things, and there was all this money that was left over in the budget. And there's a direct correlation between, when you have a staffing shortage, that affects other things in your budget. And some of those things in the budget are, when you have a staffing shortage, you're not going to be able to spend as much money on training. We budgeted $15,000 for training. As of the quarterly report, we've only spent $750. That's 5% of the training budget. For the 7G program, the 7G is these guys working on their days off for, they're working for, I don't know, whatever it is, $15, $20 an hour. Well, you're not going to, if you could work overtime, or you could work 7G, anybody is going to work overtime. So I'm guessing that the reason why we budgeted $23,000 for 7G program, and we've only shelled out $2,400, and that's only 10% to date for the 7G program, is probably a direct result of these guys are working overtime. These guys are being mandatory held back, or whatever the case may be. So, our inactions there's reactions to all these things too. I just think that it's foolish to just continue on all the time. Why we would not fully staff this position is beyond me. And I've asked numerous times for the chief of Janet to sit down and figure it out. And all I'm just told is, well, there's no money. Well, we budgeted like a couple $100,000 for a roof. We ended up spending only $100-something thousand for a roof. There's other money here, and then I was told, oh, well, we're still good. We're still ahead of water because of the full-time positions, the savings. No, that's not the case. So I'm tired of having this conversation. I'm tired of reading the minutes every time. Stecker, again, said he wants to fully staff the fire department. At what point are we going to get off our asses and make this department whole?
One question I have, Nick, and I don't know probably the contract as well as Pat or yourself. Is there an ability when there is long-term sicknesses to adjust the shift strength? If there was an extra guy, but an available guy from a red shift, to put him on the black shift, or put him on the gold shift, so you wouldn't have, because what I understand, there may have been 3 people vacant from one particular shift, which cost 3 different overtimes on any particular day, which I would think, I know in the police department, the chief has the latitude with proper notice, et cetera, to move guys around to fill those gaps to reduce the overtime. Is that not an ability?
I wouldn't know I know my contract, but I think that probably would fall under management rights under my contract, but I don't know about what your guys' says. If they can move people's shift during the year or whatever, I don't know how that works.
And that's up to the chief. And there's a lot of scheduling because ahead of time, the vacations, and holidays. That's all planned out. We're taking vacations right now from 2017.
But notwithstanding a vacation, if there's a shortage when I was on the PD, and if I had Tuesday, Wednesdays off, and there was a shortage, and, I might have Wednesday, Thursdays for X amount of time until the guy gets back or something like that to fill a gap or somebody moving around. I know it ruins guys' plans, but on the same token, the mission comes before anybody's plans. And
Sam,
I
I
would think
know-
under management rights, you can maneuver things like that as long as there's notice and
Well-
follow seniority rules or something, I would imagine.
In fact, I do know specifically the police contract requires 28-day notice to change someone's schedule, and if we don't provide them with 28 days, there's some formula for paying them overtime. We actually had a grievance hearing on that, in which we prevailed. But I don't have an immediate recall of the fire department, but if there is a provision, it would require some minimal notice, and if those things are known in advance, generally you can make those personnel shifts. Some
Yeah,
contracts.
but right now, we're only short one guy now, right, Pat? Okay. That's all I'm asking for. It's just one guy. Let's get the department fully staffed. We've been talking about it every single month. We've been trying to get these last three guys. We pulled up the minutes, and it was last November when we asked to get the last three guys hired. I mean,
Yeah.
if we went any slower, we'd be going in reverse. And it gets old. It gets really old.
I just want to say, after Chris told me you had approached me, had given you numbers, we were looking at the numbers. These numbers are going to change. We're still in the process of our
They're
audit.
gonna get worse.
No,
Oh.
they're not going to get worse.
Okay.
There
Overtime's
is-
not gonna get worse?
There are amounts that are in the current year expenditure that are going to be pulled back into last year because it's retro pay that was paid out in May. So that reduces the current year regular salaries. We looked at the health insurance for the department year-to-date because you didn't have 3 full-time. Chris, what was the approximate favorable variance in the health insurance for that? The reason that the 4th person was not budgeted was because we had to go back to every department last budget and have them cut 5% more out of their budgets in order to balance. So
I
yes, the
understand.
fire department is down 1, as well as the police department is down 1, as well as public works is down 1.
Well, and let it be known that it wasn't the
And our
board
general
that
property
got rid of
tax
that
revenues
person.
for the year, Chris, are coming in 200,000 less than budgeted because of the clerk's property tax reduction.
Okay.
So if we do not have the revenue that was anticipated, even with those cuts, we can't pay for that 4th person and sustain it, Nick. We can't.
But we were gonna
can't
pay-
say
but we were gonna pay
we gonna
$400,000
X
for that roof? Oh, we were?
That's a one-time expenditure.
Okay.
A person is a recurring,
And I've asked for
Expenditure.
long-term outlooks on those types of things too, because then next year you're gonna tell us we
which
need
is what we're doing.
$75,000 in
We're
windows
developing
and all
a
this other
capital
stuff.
plan. It
Well,
doesn't
We've
happen
been talking about
overnight.
these things forever.
It doesn't happen overnight. But to deplete the general fund for one department when 2 other
Once
departments
again,
are also down
there's gonna be
1.
other things that are a direct result of not having these positions filled that's gonna always have money
And-
there.
and that's
why
unfortunately
we're
gonna occur
giving
in
up
every department.
manpower, why we're giving up bodies before we look at other things to give up is beyond me. Personnel should be the last thing cut,
Personnel is 80% of our budget. We
and it
do
should be the
look at
last
that
thing
as,
cut.
it is the last thing cut, Nick. We had nowhere else
Okay,
to cut.
you think that that's the leanest? Okay, well, then, you know what, we'll have this
actually-
conversation at the end of the budget year, like we do
We
every
will,
single
because
year.
we went
And then
back
we
to
hear the,
each-
oh, this is about the
Yes, we went to each department head. Where
tired
can
of
you
this.
cut your budget? Where can you cut
Okay,
your budget?
Janet, you don't want the 4th guy. Got it. Okay, if you could go back there and
Nick,
tell
I
everybody
would love
that
to
Janet does not
have
want the 4th
unlimited
guy.
personnel if we had the money to fund them.
This gets old.
We do not have the money. Also,
gets old.
we've gotten our draft pension reports and our pension contributions
All right,
for
we'll
both
find money for everything else,
firefighters
so-
and police. Our
money
contributions are
for
going to
everything else,
increase
so.
$100,000 for each department for next budget year. That's $200,000 that we have to come up with. Our property tax increase, which you're gonna find out when Chris talks about it, CPI is limited to 0.7%.
Got it.
You know, all of our contracts, our salaries are raising 2.25%, Nick.
Yeah, no, I know.
When
exactly
our
how it
revenues
works.
are increasing 0.7.
I get it.
So we don't have the funding.
Let's,
Okay. All right.
The
Well, then I'm not
analysis
approving
that
one
was-
change order, ever. I will not approve one goddamn change order that comes here where, oh, this is $120,000 over. You guys have to pass this. You have to pass this. They already did the work. I'm not approving one. I'm done with this.
this is what I
We
would
find
like.
money for everything else.
This is what I'd like. There's been
It's
a
ridiculous.
bunch of numbers tossed around.
Ridiculous.
I want to see an analysis with the fire department stuff that Nick brought up, that Chris brought up, what Janet brought up, and I want to see what the bottom line is as of this minute. So, there's a bunch of numbers that were thrown out here. We saved 52, we went over 92 or 80 or whatever. I want to see a scattergram again of all the numbers that were there, so we could make a look at what type of decision, and then all these other things that are popping up to look at as well. I mean, there's nobody likes change orders, especially me, and we went through some issues last year with that as well. So let's put all the numbers down. I'd love to hire another guy in Public Works. I certainly want more people in Police Department, and I want to man the ambulance as we intended to do that with the right personnel. I think we could have saved some of the overtime, knowing that we had some long-term illnesses or injuries in the fire department, that people were out 6 months, 7 months, whatever the long-term time frame was. I would have thought we would have been able, through the chief's purview or whatever the contract says, to follow it to the letter of there, that there would have been some movement, whether voluntary or not voluntary, under the management rights. Because, you know, we have to run the operation. That doesn't mean we have to do it bankrupt. What I will concur is every year since I've been here, it appears that the fire department never budgets enough for overtime and is always way over on the overtime. And these issues that Nick has explained in detail have presented themselves to us on more than one occasion, which is tiring.
Extremely.
So, I'd like to see the numbers. End of story. You're doing a great job with the numbers. You were able to get something right away, apparently, where someone else was not. And I'd like to see those numbers.
Could we get somewhat of a projection of what the overtime is going, may be by the end of the budget season too, so we're not surprised?
Well, I think that's why I want to go to monthly reporting, because I think it would keep things more current. Quarterly,
Well, I think you got it, right now, Tom, you got one guy MIA, but he's coming back in November, and you got 3 new guys coming, they're gonna eat some of that, so.
Yeah, but still,
Unless there's an
we're
issue.
still not gonna, there's still gonna be overtime from now until May. So, if we could get some type of projection.
Project it based off of last year's and kind of take, let's see what it looked like the last 5-6 months. I mean, we still got 7 months left.
Right, exactly, and we're at,
Money spent.
I have no objections to that as well.
I'd like to see something.
Well, when we get the analysis, I'd like all the people to be in the same room because nobody seems to know what the other person's talking about. I get documents and I say, hey, nobody can even explain it, the people that even send it to me. And I'd like everybody to be able to figure it out. So I can make a decision then based on it.
Can we see where the fire department's budget ended up last year at the end of the fiscal year?
On the personnel side,
Yeah,
costs.
were they, did they have money sitting on the table still?
Pat, I'm trying.
Anything else? Celestine, anything?
Nothing, thank you, sir.
Carl, anything?
The Environmental Sustainability Commission had their last electronic recycling last Saturday. It went very well. It was very well attended. And for the year, everything went fantastic, with the exception of the one time with regarding the snafu with the weather. It was a very productive year. I know we're waiting on the final totals of how much we collected, but my thanks to all village staff who helped out, to all the volunteers, especially the Boy Scouts, who, for a lack of a better word, are our guardian angels. because they come out and they really bust their butts. It doesn't matter how old they are. They do a lot of good work, and they make this event successful and easier for us. So that's all I have to say right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Angelo, any?
Just one more stat. I know we had over 200 cars come through this month, which was double of last month, which typically we see at the end of the year, but it was a well-attended event.
And you were working the shredding aspect of it, Angelo? About how many containers?
I think we were at 28.
20 toters, 96 gallons, so that's a lot of shredding. So, Tommy, anything, sir?
Actually, CAB is planning or has an idea to do on Saturday, October 9th from 2 to 4 by Mariano's in that shopping complex, like a Halloween walk for the kids, so they could get the kids into the businesses to trick or treat and stuff, because lately the weather hasn't been conducive for Halloween for them. So it's still in the works, but they're thinking of doing it. It's all on a voluntary basis for the businesses and everything. So
What date was that?
Saturday, October 29th from
29th?
From 2 to 4.
2 to 4.
And then we got the toy drive starting in November too, until, I don't know, some mid-December. I don't remember the exact date.
Okay. Chief, anything?
Thank you very much. I just wanted to update the board with the fact that I had 2 officers last week go through the Narcan training that Cook County put out a while back in regards to giving out the units to the police departments throughout the county. So Officer Fellers and Verber went to the training, so they will be conducting training here at the department, roll call to make sure everybody's versed on it, and we will have the Narcan units now out in the squad cars. Hopefully, we'll be able to make a save or two, and if we get there before the fire department, we'll be able to use it, and then once they get there, turn them over to their hands. But hopefully this will help maybe save a few lives down the road. So the Citizens Police Academy started last week, and it seems like a really good class. Rob Verber's heading it up, and that's going real well. I want to thank Mr. President for coming out and making a few comments, to welcome the group, and look forward to the next 9 weeks with them, and I think they're going to have a lot of fun. And we'll continue this on in January. It seems successful, so by all means, if any of the board wants to attend, please, I welcome you to come on out and join the class, or come with your wives, your kids, partner up with somebody. The more the merrier. I'll be, just so you know, I'll be heading out I got to fall on the sword for the village. I have to head out to San Diego on Thursday and go to the International Chiefs Conference. So I'll be out there for 5 days. It'll be a little rough.
Where is it?
But I'll keep my head up, and I'll try to do the best I can out there. And lastly, I'd just like to thank everybody for your support, your prayers, your thoughts, and my mom's death. And the village was great, and the flowers were beautiful. And I appreciate everybody coming out and showing your support. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, Chief. Patrick.
We have 3 guys on. 2 are an FAE now. The guy that went on today's shift, he's advanced firefighter already. So now we just have to orientate him in the department, get him in line with our SOGs. The other 2 are basic firefighters. We'll be getting them in classes to get them to their advanced firefighter in time when the classes come available. We have our open house this Thursday. I'll welcome to come out. A lot of fun for the whole family. I believe they're going to have fire engine rides, and they're doing a burn demonstration, and other things like that. We thank you for the three firefighters we have. We waited for them. As you know, we're still down 1. I leave the numbers to you guys. We always like to be fully staffed if we can. Besides
That's good to hear.
that's
Don't
what's
usually
going
hear.
on over there. We do have 1 guy off on disability right now.
Do you think end of November, or did any return date that you're aware of? You may not be.
Coming back,
Yeah.
I believe November 4th.
Oh, so early in the month.
Yeah, as long as his rehab goes good.
Okay.
the rat count as manpower? No? Oh, okay. No, I could tell you how to handle that inflatable rat.
Gregory?
BB gun?
Not much of an update, just a piece of information. At the last meeting, I brought up T-Mobile's request to go on the tower and discuss and take a look at the tower. I don't believe there's anything for a cow at this point. It's just general information that they did send an engineer out to do a study on the tower. Have not received that report yet. I've not heard anything back. But thank you to Robert for providing me with some blueprint-style documents that they requested. I'll be reporting back to the board probably at the next meeting. I'll be passing along. It'll be probably a draft contract to start. Janet will pass it on to the attorneys. But at this point, that's all I've got.
Greg, real quick, has there been any joint ETSB meetings yet, now that we've established a joint ETSB?
No, because there hasn't been any effect taken to that.
I just didn't know if they had to schedule meetings or if there's...
No, not at this point, no.
Okay.
Don Nielsen contacted me last week. Initially, when the agreements had been submitted to the state, he had each individual municipality sign a signature page, and the state was mandating that everybody had signed the same document. So we re-signed the forms. He had Sam re-sign them last week, and Don came in and picked them up, so they're submitting that to the state. So we haven't gotten all the state approvals yet.
Okay. But ours is still dissolved as of date, and we're, even though it hasn't...
No, that's not until 2017
Okay.
gets dissolved. It's got a date in the agreement to, what
Before
we
it-
adopted at the board level, village board level, goes into effect and dissolves.
That's when that one's dissolved, okay.
I do have a question.
Yeah, Michael. go ahead.
With regard to the camera IGA with the Park District, there's a time limit of 45 days from execution. That could occur tonight or tomorrow, and the clock starts running. The village has to purchase those cameras. So
I'll be in touch with them first thing in the morning as long as execution is done. Upon Janet's nod to get an update from the
I
vendor.
emailed Gary Cassanders this afternoon after we talked, Mike, and asked him to drop off the originals for signature.
okay. And then
I'll attempt to
they're supposed to
speak with
pay
them.
us their share within that same 45-day period. So I don't know how you can finesse that so we get money in hand before you have to pay for the cameras, but
Purchase
it's
order,
a-
and then when they invoice us, we'll make sure that we have that
Yeah,
money in
we'll-
hand.
okay,
Remit it to the
great.
park.
Thank you.
Robert?
Had mentioned the rat. If anyone has any questions about why that was out there, I'd be happy to answer them. Hearing none, I'll move
No,
on.
I mean, we should get a rundown. I think we're paying prevailing wage, which
That's correct.
was established even before, in a conversation I had with the gentleman early on in the procedure.
Oh, was it for the roof?
I think the issue is that the gentlemen performing the work are not union members. They are putting a coating on there or
Yeah.
paint. I don't know if they can belong to the painters or they can't, or, I mean, there was some discussion back there. But because they aren't affiliated with a union is vis-à-vis why the inflatable is out there. Is that pretty much where we're at?
Right, right. They had talked to the roofers union several years ago, so they tell me, and they saw them as a coating applicant and not applicable to their union. They went to the painters union, they saw them as roofers. Neither one of them wanted them, so they said, okay, fine. So they're operating independently, but paying prevailing wage. They work in Cook County, they work for the CHA, and they're required to do certified payrolls and all that, and they're happy to do that. So I still don't understand why they were out there. I did talk to those gentlemen. They feel like we're hiding something, and it is a little unusual what we did. We had a public bid, and then we rejected all bids and went to a proprietary system and waived bids. So they think we're hiding something, and I assured them we're not. This is well within the purview of what this board does and can do, and it follows procedures and policies and law. So if you have any questions, you certainly can ask us directly. You don't have to put a rat out front. but they felt that was the better move to make. And I
There's a
wanted-
state law that allows them to utilize the right-of-way for that type of activity in there, that's why it's on your parkway there. so.
It's still there, I didn't notice.
No, they took it down.
And
around
if you
They'll
do-
3:30
They
or
take it
so.
down and put it up every day.
I'm saying, and if you do recall, there was quite a list of both public and private entities that have used this covering system
Yes.
that was contained in all of our packets as far as references, involving municipalities, hospitals, and all these other places. So if, I just wonder if the inflatable was present in all those locations, or is it just us because we have the local roofers union in the past, or down the block, and we've had an issue in the past which turned out to be wrong on their end based on a incorrect name check
They
when they
did,
had a
they
situation.
did appear at one of his CHA last year. So I guess we're not alone in, but
And-
it is very
But the
easy for
sheet
them.
metal application, which is not being performed by these folks, is going to be sheet metal workers from down in Hillside, which is a union operation as well.
Yeah, they went down to the Union Hall just west of here to pick up some sheet metal workers, so,
The company did,
yes.
when they were looking to have their sub piece of it.
They're gonna set up as a subcontractor, and they're gonna come in and we'll have to have them register. But they formed a company to do that work as a subcontractor to our roofing contractor. But they're all coming out of the Union Hall just down the street, so I'm certain they'll be paying prevailing wage for that.
Anyone have any other questions regarding that issue? Robert, anything else?
Yeah, just a couple issues. I wanted to make the board aware that the state has been going through and reclassifying the federal aid urban street system. This is where localities can get federal gas tax money. We got this on Enterprise Drive where they paid for 80% of the construction cost. And I guess it's no surprise that in their reclassifying, they knocked a lot of streets out of the system. So there's more money in the pot for them. So one of our issues is that we had been approved by our local council to get 80/20 money for Balmoral Avenue, and they reclassified it as a local street. So in the last month or so, I have been having lengthy discussions with IDOT about classifying it back, and they sent me a letter last week, Thursday, Friday, saying that they agreed with my reasoning and they're going to reclassify that street. So we have budgeted money to do the phase one engineering, but I held off on it because they removed our eligibility. So now we're kind of late in the year, and what I want to ask the board is, in the procurement of engineering, we can either go a direct hire to our city engineer, Chris Burke, to do this work, or we can do an RFP and get a little more competition. If there's any preference, I think, because time is of the essence, I would make a direct approach to Christopher Burke to do the phase one engineering so we can still qualify before the state changes their mind and do the upfront engineering. We have to pay 100% of that cost, but we'll get 80% on the construction end, so it's roughly about $800,000. So
I hate to put you on the spot. Is there any way that you could perform a portion of that phase one piece?
you have to have some current certifications. My phase one certifications are no longer valid. I haven't done a phase one environmental assessment in over 10 years, so I would have to take a class. So
Well, you know what, maybe not this time, but if you have the wherewithal to get the certification, I think in the future, it may be helpful that we could save some money in regards to that aspect of it.
It requires
I
a
don't know
fair
what
amount of drafting, drawing, and depending on the project, like the Gladstone Bridge, you have to do an environmental assessment of the stream, and I'm just not qualified to do those kind of things.
But I mean,
It
for
depends on the
a
project.
roadway, I think a bridge over water might be something that might be a little bit difficult. But, normally what we're doing out there, whether it's us or a contractor, We're grinding, we're either replacing or not doing the curbs and aprons. We're taking core samples, and we're taking 2 or 3 inches off, and we're adding 2 or 3 inches on, and we're making sure that there's a crest in the center so the water goes either side. I don't want to make light of what engineers do.
Right.
But, I mean, that's the net end result of what's happening. And I'm trying to save us money, like I did with the roof and other things that are out there. And, you know, our jobs here are to make the most benefit of the monies that we have and the expertise that we have, either on the board or in people that we hire. And just a consideration.
To give you some perspective of what you asked, the effort is somewhere around 800 to 1,000 hours. A 40-hour work week, that's about 2,080 hours a year. That would mean that if all I do is that project for 6 months, I could do that, but not do anything else.
Okay,
If
so it's
that-
not cost
If that's your
effective.
prerogative, I'd be happy to lock myself in a room and just do that job, not answer the phone and not
Yeah.
run other projects. But I just want you to be aware of the level of effort, and I understand what you're saying,
I get it.
but I need you to understand what that commitment
Okay.
is.
If I don't ask, I don't get answered.
Oh, right.
So, I mean, so it's an educational piece of my ignorance and what all goes to it, so.
Yeah, they're pretty in-depth reports. Certainly the design may seem easy, but to get the state and federal funding, you've got to go through this process and documentation, and it can be done in-house,
Okay.
but it's just takes a lot of time. So that was, I just wanted to make the board aware that we have 7 streets classified on the federal aid secondary. They knocked 3 of them out, that they're local funding and no longer eligible for this federal tax dollar. I got 1 reclassified, and then Windsor is the other one I think I can get reclassified, so we're eligible for money. I just wanted to move quickly on Balmoral so we can get those federal funds to reconstruct the northern half, Canterbury to Roosevelt.
I just want to point out, if you're not going to use an engineering firm, that you have a satisfactory relationship presently. There's a state statute that requires you to follow certain procedures, to rank order them before you can even begin negotiating the price. So that would be somewhat lengthy. It would take more time than just
Yes.
simply picking one of the firms that you already have a relationship
Don't we
with.
consider Christopher
Burke
Burke?
is our-
Absolutely, yeah, I'm
Right.
saying if you're looking for somebody else that you haven't done business with.
Oh,
Yeah.
It would be more expedient to use our village engineer. I would just want to be upfront with, that is my inclination at this time. Time is of the essence to directly
Yeah.
negotiate with them. And
I don't
select
think
them.
anyone has an issue with that. My issue was just figuring out a way to save cash, that's all. I have no issues with Christopher Burke and the work they do here, but,
Okay, okay.
so.
And then just lastly, as directed by the board, we are beginning to put together a capital improvement program for all the buildings and grounds. We're going to do an assessment of the buildings. We're going to look at post office, fire station 1, fire station 2, public works garage, village hall. We'll look at even the Mayfair pump station. It's a brick structure, and we'll take a look at Crestwood. We're going to look at the roofing systems, the HVAC systems, windows, doors, tuck pointing, and ADA issues associated with all of these buildings and grounds. And then we're going to put that together in the capital improvement program that we will be presenting as we go through the budget. So you'll see a more concise document addressing all the buildings that we do own and maintain. We had put something together last year and the year before in a spreadsheet fashion, but it didn't address all the issues, and I think that was the direction I received from the board. Hey, why don't we look at everything and you know, tell us what we need to do. So we began doing that. I do have a firm that is going to help us do some of these assessments, where they're going to look at the need for tuck pointing and look at windows, whether they're being replaced or can be rehabbed, and doors and all that. So just want to make the board aware that we're going to do that.
Robert, real quick, I don't know if you have the information, but where are we on the street sign replacement for the parking, the snow removal, parking and all that stuff?
We are close to 50%. We've done the whole north part of town, and I think we came in ahead of schedule for placing most of the signs.
Yeah, I think they're done with, that's your question. They're
This year's
Well,
program.
I just think there's some chatter out there, people are noticing the signs are being changed, so are we getting, once that section is complete, we'll be able to enforce it?
Yes.
there? Okay.
Yes, the snow piece will be enforced. The maintenance piece, I think we decided that we were gonna wait until the spring or till we get those other signs up before we do a maintenance, which is generally gonna be, I would say, next summer. That will be full-blown when the sweeper and all those other things are out there. But the snow action will be pretty much across all towns, or all the town. If the red signs are saying Tuesday, Thursday, not weekends and stuff like that, that's what we're gonna enforce until the blue and white.
But
ones
we're
are
done
up.
putting up signs for the year? Okay.
The signs are
That's
up.
it, okay.
They've switched into, and then Robert was gonna say, they switched into crack fill mode. So all the streets that were paved would be 2 years ago. They're doing the curbs in the center section and any lateral cracks that they find. The new crack machine has been working out well. It had to go back for some kind of switch. They gave us a brand-new loaner, so it was seamless. They worked on that today, and I think our machine is back. So,
Are we doing the streets that we did the paving on as well, or just the,
Yeah, well, we
just
will
the contracted
do
ones?
probably the edges this year, and then next year we'll look at the seams, because a couple of them are wide. We've got two, our pavers, small. We did it in 3 passes, so we've got a few more, rather than a center line crack, we have a few more edge lines.
and actually, and what I asked for, just in conversations with the paving crew back there, is possibly for next year to look at the streets that they left the centers alone, and if practicable, go back and do those centers, because the outsides have been doing pretty well. So I think they're gonna look into that aspect of it, because once they finish the centers, then basically you got a brand-new street, hopefully for 5 or 6 years in the future, in addition to what else, we are planning. I know if you look at Dickens, between Gardner and the Boulevard is in very bad shape. Some of those ones that are going east and west, I know that they were gonna put those on the list for next year to do. They would love to do full passes, especially with the rollers that are out there, better than the roller that we have, and I think their expertise is such that they can do that, so they just want a chance to be unleashed. But that was the commentary. I said, kind of look at what we've paved and not paved in the center and see if we can go back and do those and now make a full street full. So that's something that I think you'll be looking at next year when you look at your paving and how much they could get done. So just comments that I'm aware of. So.
Snow enforcement is scheduled December 1, goes to March 31st.
For the snow piece.
For snow piece.
Melissa.
Good evening. Just a couple things for tonight. I was able to attend, WCMC had a workshop for access to capital for small businesses. I attended with Sam and Janet and Chris. We all went and heard from the SBA was there. There were also some local lending institutions that do like microloans and some other things. So I was able to give all the information that I got at that training to our Chamber of Commerce and to the Economic Development Committee. So they all have the information from that seminar. It was a really interesting seminar. We already talked about the Pride in 7. The next meeting is for the Prairie District. It's at Mariano's at 8 o'clock on October 27th. And my department completed 241 inspections last month, issued 200 permits, and it was about $1 million in construction value. That's all that I have.
Sure be anything.
Well, I'd just like to say, I just wanted to thank our first responders. Just wanted to thank our first responders. Recently, my neighbor, who is a former policeman, retired policeman, had a heart attack a couple weeks ago, with Robert Paxson. And I must add that, of course, our police department were the first ones on the scene, and then the fire department. But unfortunately, he passed. But I just wanted to thank you for your efforts in trying to revive him. So he's truly missed.
Sorry to hear that. Okay, Chief, any update on Lancaster today? Were we able to ping the phone for the?
They were tracking it all afternoon, as I was saying before. Unfortunately, it's about a 15-minute delay. And it was active all afternoon, but then at that point in time, they lost the tracking. So I don't know why that.
So I know the board received an email about an incident that happened on Lancaster where a car and
Random deal. Two
items
guys
were snatched.
in a black vehicle pulled up and saw the person out in the driveway and walked right up and implied a gun, never showed one.
Anything specific about the car that was taken?
No, it was just a 2002 Impala, just an older,
Nothing.
nothing special. Just an opportunity to grab a car and somebody's wallet and some money, and they took off.
Just a couple of things before we get into the committee of the whole. I received an email from Mr. Roger Moore from the Salvation Army, and I'm asked to print and post and distribute the flyer. But the Grace Central Church, in conjunction with the Chicago Food Depository, is hosting a mobile food pantry that will be available to all Proviso Township residents on Tuesday, October 25th, 2016, 10 a.m. till noon. At the Grace Central Outreach is located at 10216 Kitchener, which is the old B'nai Israel synagogue. So, so this involved with the Chicago Food Depository. So we'll get this information to our. Oh, we did. Okay, our food pantry, and there's a flyer that was well. I know the Cook County authorities, the board, so to speak, is still looking at their pharmaceutical collection program. I think they kicked it into November. They haven't decided what they're doing, but there is a groundswell of getting these old opioids and medicines out of the hands. I read an article today that was very disturbing regarding how many people every day are being killed as a result of opioid, I would say it's suicide, but opioid taking that ends up in a death. So hopefully we can get these things going and the county will be on board with that. We've been collecting for years. I know we have our collection date of October 22nd throughout Cook County here that we partner with the DEA. So hopefully the county authorities will get more of these collection locations out there, in addition to Walgreens, and I think CVS has sponsored one in the Lyons Township area. So those things are necessary to get these drugs out. Two things that I wanted to throw out there. One was I was looking at part of the business incentive program, and I was wondering, I know another community is looking into this and possibly doing this, but for our facade program, we offer X amount of dollars for facade upgrades. And the one community was looking to contact the local bank to see if the local bank would be willing to do a low-interest loan type program for the balance of some of those monies. So say XYZ store gets $7,500 from us, and maybe, Harris Bank will give a low-interest loan for, say it's another $7,500 that they need to do this, that would be an incentive to maybe upgrade the facades where they wouldn't have to come up with that piece of the money, maybe over a time frame that they could have that. So I know there's a community, Countryside, that's looking into this, that maybe we can contact one of the local banks, whether it be PNC or BMO or whomever, and say, you know, are you interested if we have a facade program that we're putting X amount of dollars on there, with the goal being that the company, or whoever's gonna upgrade this, would be able to avail themselves of some lower interest loan thing. The other thing I thought is, I've been walking the town delivering bags and that, I've seen way too many vehicles in driveways, when I'm passing, that either have an expired vehicle tag, no vehicle tag. I don't know what we can do to make sure the enforcement is out there, that everybody's getting these things. Something we need to think about, but there were quite a few that were disturbing when I saw a red tag of 14 and, you know, no 16 tag, and driving up and down there. There was quite a few of the thousands of houses that I've already hit. In that vein, I was wondering if the board would consider, I know this would be somewhat of a reduction in revenue, and I know we're chasing our tails all the times, but I would request that we at least consider veterans that maybe could get a reduced rate. I don't know what the rate would be, but maybe a senior rate or whatever for one tag.
I brought
Wait,
that up
we
before.
we have
Yeah,
that?
we've talked,
Yeah,
well,
I
we've
brought
talked
that
about
up.
it in the past.
I thought that was in place for this time. Yeah.
I'm not sure if we've been doing it for veterans, but I would like to, if we're not doing it, if the
I
board
re-
would
yeah, I
consider in the
remember.
future for the next go-round of the 17 tags, that if you have a DD 214, or I'm sure we would know exactly what you would need, to do that, that we would allow one tag at the, I guess, the senior rate or lower rate, or whatever we have for any veteran that has come forward with their
I thought
correct paperwork.
we should have implemented this go about.
I'm not sure. All right, well, I would suggest that we're discussing it now, and we may have discussed it in the past. If maybe we can put it on the next agenda at some point in time, that if it's needs a vote, that we do that. If anyone has any reservations to that, but I would say active military and veterans, or whatever the case may be. So we do host the American Legion here, and I think that's the least we can do at this point in time. So if that would be it. Probably have something else in my head, but I can't remember it right now, so I'll move on to executive session. We're going to have, are we doing both, guys and gals? Okay. Under A, 5 Ilix 122C1, to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body, and under 5 Ilix 122C11, litigation, when the action against, affecting, or on behalf of a particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, that we can discuss that as allowable under the rules in exec session. So if there's nothing else for the board level, I'd ask for a
Sam, real
motion.
quick, 1 second. Just a question. Now that we passed this Norcom contract, when are we gonna get those new computer, or the loaners computers?
I'll find out tomorrow morning.
Okay,
I'll have,
right,
The tough books?
yeah,
Yeah, that
just so that,
just got passed tonight, so
Mhm.
it should be happening very quickly.
okay, sounds good.
Anything else? Okay. Is there a motion, a second, to adjourn the board meeting?
Motion.
Second.
Celeste and Nick. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition say no? I didn't hear a lot of ayes.
Aye.
Aye. Only heard one. Okay, our board meeting stands adjourned. We will move.